and welcome to the Center Studio podcast. Now in our 9th year of monthly interviews, I have the great pleasure to meet interesting creative artists who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and ask them about themselves and their work. Now, Mauli Bonner has a problem. He does so many things in different artistic disciplines that it's hard to pin him down. He writes for Grammy Award-winning artists. He works on television singing competitions. He's scored music for feature films and TV. He's a motivational speaker, a children's book author. He writes and directs films. And
Mhm.
he's the founder of a nonprofit organization, Lift Up Voices Foundation. Welcome, Mauli. How are you today?
I am great. And when you listed all those things, I'm like, okay, I got to cut some of this stuff out. You just made me, like, I didn't realize I was doing so much.
But it's cool, though. I think it's going to make it so much fun to talk with you today because you're doing such different kinds of things. Like when you introduce yourself professionally, how do you describe yourself?
Oh, that's a great question because it depends on who I'm talking to. Because if I'm with a certain group of people, then I'm just my wife's husband because she's awesome in her own right as a therapist and as a social worker, and then there's other times when I just introduce myself as a director, or I'm just a vocal coach, or I'm an artist development, director. So it depends on the circle, because I think people need to feel like, okay, who are you? What do you do? And the list of things just confuses them. So I have to try to make it easy.
Yeah, well, people are not as smart as we want to think they are. Um, let's
Yeah,
say
that's right.
let's say in your personal life though, like how do you self-identify? What's
Uh,
that about?
I've accepted the fact that I am a filmmaker. Like before, because I did the Green Flake film, and I've since just kind of been running and writing and directing, and so there's been a number of projects. But I would say I'm not a filmmaker. I just make films. But now it's taking up so much of my life that I am a filmmaker, and I love it. I love it, Glenn.
Well, if you do one, it's an accident. If you do 3 and 4, then all of a sudden, yeah, you probably should say you're a filmmaker. But
Right,
you're also
right.
a dad. Like, give me all those other kinds of
Yes, yes, yes,
descriptions.
yes. So I'm a father of 2 kids, Gio and Ari, and that's of course, my favorite job. I love it, love it, love it. It's like what I've always wanted to be. When people ask you, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" I'm like, "I want to be a dad and husband, but like the best of both." So I love doing that, and I've also loved serving in my calling in church. Like I just got released in the bishopric. We were there for 7 years, so we did some overtime in the bishopric, but it was like the perfect time. It was right when the bishopric became fully responsible for the youth, where they kind of let go of other responsibilities that typical bishoprics would have in the past. And we just got to really be with the young adults and the youth, and they were just great. It has been the highlight of my life, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. I can imagine them just feeding off of your energy. We haven't met before. I mean, I'm a fan of your work. I know your work a little bit, but we have mutual friends. And Lita and Kevin Giddens are a couple of those friends, and they lead the center's diversity and inclusion committee. And they said to me recently, "Hey, you got to talk with Molly. He's working on some cool projects, and I should ask you about them." So let's start there. What are you working on right now?
Well, I'm going to first say shout out to Lita and Kevin, because Kevin Kevin is a big reason why a number of my siblings went to BYU and were part of the Young Ambassadors program. Kevin was such a great advocate for our family, the Bonner family, getting into music as it pertains to musical theater and whatever else. So, Kevin, we love you. The Giddens, we love that family. And now I
Yeah.
forget the question. So you got to ask it again.
Hey, what are you working on these days?
Okay, right now I am heavily into this film project. Well, it's not just a film, it's a series, a 6-part series, 6 dramatized episodes and 6 documentary episodes of Elijah Abel's life. Elijah Abel was one of the first Black pioneers to have the priesthood. And right now I am rewriting some of the scenes, adding some things in, and editing as we've been going. So there's a ton of footage.
Well, I'm going to be all over this thing when it comes out, but it's not due for a little while. You're still working.
Oh,
It's still in process, right?
yes, 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 it is.
So you've got, okay, this is a complex project. So let's unpack it a little bit.
Yes,
So part of it is a dramatization that's a 6 episode series,
yes.
and then there's another side of it. What's that?
The documentary side. So, if you are someone that just wants to know what happened, like who said what and when, and like how did this unfold with the priesthood? Like, so there were black people that had the priesthood. What changed, when, what meeting? So that's what the documentary side gives you, is like the play by play to give you an in depth look of the history and the times that they were in and how that evolved. And the film side, the series, the dramatized episodes, that allows you to connect to the people that we're talking about, the human beings that actually lived it. And so, for some people, they may not care about the documentary stuff. I just want the series. And for the others, they may want the documentary. Some may want both. And what I didn't want, Glenn, is for people to watch the film and then not know, well, what part was dramatized, what
Yeah.
part was really what really happened. So they'll have all the information.
I like your approach. That's a cool thing. I'm not familiar though with other projects like it that have had that dual production side of it. Are you? Is that a
I'm
common thing?
not. Honestly, I'm not. But I just know this is such sensitive history, and it's not just a story about Elijah's life, and it's not just Black history, and it's not just church histories, but we're entwining all of these things and weaving them together. And I know that there are going to be people that have had these questions that's been gnawing at them for years, and I want them to be able to have those answers and not just a show, but also with the historical documented answers of this is what happened and when. Um, I just don't want to sell anybody short. I want this to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
the
yeah.
launching pad, you know?
Right. Is the research side of it difficult? Like, how are you finding the history side?
I appreciate you asking. So, I'm not a historian, right? I'm a filmmaker, but I love learning about my history within my faith, within my people. And I thought, I'm going to be doing this for a decade before I can even get started. But I've had historians that have been so generous with their time and their resources, saying, what do you need to know? What are you looking at? And I can give you these journal entries that will give you this information. So the historians, Amy Theriot, Paul Reeve, have been so instrumental for me being able to decipher this history. And then after I met with the church communications, church history department, because I wanted them to know this is an important project that I'm working on. It's our shared history. And I didn't know how the church was going to respond to that. Like, wait, what are you doing? How are you? But they were
Right.
like, what do you need? What do you need?
Really?
Yes.
That's
What
nice.
you know what I'm saying? Like, I want people to know that, because you would think that the church is like, "Uh-oh, what's going on?" But they are like, "Doors open. Here's historians. Make sure you guys give him what he needs." So it's been so easy to be able to pull the history that I need with the support of the church.
Yeah, really cool. This probably is related in some way to your previous film, His Name Is Green Flake, right?
Yeah, it is. It
Like,
is.
maybe if someone is listening and isn't aware of that film, which was 3 years ago, I wanna say?
Yeah, or 4 now,
So
yeah.
what is that film about?
His Name Is Green Flake was the name of the film, and it follows the life of free and enslaved pioneers that came across that trek in 1847. So it mainly focuses on Green Flake, this 19-year-old enslaved young man who drove the first wagon into the valley. And so that is like, those who are hearing that for the first time are probably like, wait, what?
I know.
You think Pioneer Day or the Pioneer Trek, you don't think of one, black folks, and two, an enslaved 19-year-old, the same age as our missionaries that go out, driving the first wagon. And it follows his life and helps us learn of the enslaved experience in the early church. The film, though, is on Amazon Prime under Black Pioneer. So if you're looking to go check it out, it would be Black Pioneer on Amazon Prime, or His Name Is Green Flake if you go to like Deseret Book to check it out.
Alright. I mean, my guess is that you learned quite a lot creating that film, which you
Yeah.
also wrote and directed that you're building upon. Like, what are as you have access to these historians and church records, and I've worked with Paul Reeve in the past. You know, he's a genius. I mean,
Yeah,
this
he
is
is.
extraordinary work. what are you learning about yourself and history and everything? I mean, this has to. I mean, you've given some gorgeous interviews in the past, and I remember one talking about that you originally came across some of this information that was new to you, and you were like, "Whoa." Whatever. So that's and I'm sure you've told that story before, I think, but what kinds of thing are you learning about yourself in the process of making these films?
Um, I think I'm learning about where I fit within my people. Like my great grandfather was enslaved, Glenn, and I wonder, what is that experience for someone who was enslaved, navigating America that has so much to offer but is limited in so many ways. And then now, once freedom comes, how do they keep their faith when they have people who share their faith who have treated them in the worst way? How do they do that? And so I now look at my life experiences, and I have like microcosms of that, like very small versions of their experiences. Do African Americans experience now today, because we've progressed so far, but there's still some really harmful and hard experiences. And I look at some of the things that I've had to endure as it pertains to racism, and I can see how my faith was able to sustain by looking at them. Like, their faith was rooted completely in Christ and the gospel of Jesus Christ, not in their peers, um,
Right.
and other members, not in their leaders. It was in the gospel, so that no matter what happened in the world around them, that was never negotiable. And so I I feel like I've learned more about the strength of my own faith and where it comes from and why it's been able to sustain racism. Um, and I just I have loved this journey in
Yeah.
uncovering the stories.
Incredible. I mean, I think I probably should mention one more. You wrote the music for the film Jane and Emma. Was that kind of the first time that you had thought about making art out of this shared cultural experience?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you something that I've never told anybody, never come out of my mouth. Um, so I did. I so the score, me and Jonathan Keith, the partner that I worked in music with, I had never done any score, period. Right? And this is the secret that I'm telling you. They didn't know that when they asked me, like, someone said, "Hey, do you know how to?" I'm like, "Yeah," because
Sure.
I was always been told to say yes, and then just figure it out. Like, "Of
Like a
course."
true artist there.
Of course, yes, of course. What do you need? And what is this? And so I had never scored a film before. That was my first time. And it was an incredible experience. Of course, my background is in music. It's not so unfamiliar that I didn't know what I was doing, but it was fascinating to me that even though it was my first time doing it, I felt like I've been doing it my whole career. And it really made me connect to film in a new way of the storytelling part of it with the Jane and Emma film.
Okay, yeah, it just clicked for you. Now, a very different kind of movie. I see on IMDb that you have another film in post production, The Watching, a horror film
Oh,
that you wrote and directed.
stop digging Glenn. Okay. That is-
Well, I
okay.
mean, it was like, well, that seems like I have to ask about that.
Yeah, that is in post-production now. So that yeah, it's not out, but it's something we shot and editing. So it's a horror film, right? And it's like totally different genre than this religious period piece filming. But it was so fun. Again, it to just to explore storytelling in this new way. With my background is in music and helping artists tell their most authentic self through song and music. So making films definitely felt like it was consistent with what I already do. But horror films, which is funny, the watching, I don't watch horror films because I get scared too easy. Like, always grabbing onto my wife, and she's always like, "Let go of me." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not watching it unless I can hold you." And then here I am making a horror film. Yeah, so that's funny. It's funny you brought it
A
up.
few months ago, the center published an essay from a film scholar in BYU, Hawaii, on Mormon horror, and
Yeah.
there's a whole lot. There are horror filmmakers who are using LDS stories and LDS characters in them, and
Mm.
then there are also LDS filmmakers who are mining a rich history and giving it a horrific slant.
Yeah.
So you're in pretty good company, but it is sort of fascinating to me that this is a thing, but it's legit. I mean, there's lots of people working with in this area.
Oh, that's funny. I wouldn't even have known that because, like I said, horror is not my thing. This,
Yeah.
what I'm doing right now, the period piece stuff, this is, but which is interesting because 2018 was my launching into it. I had not thought about this history hardly. Elijah Abel, Green Flake, Black Pioneers is not something that I was raised up on researching and knowing. I
Yeah.
felt like I was learning it and telling the story at the same time. It was
Yeah.
such an interesting process.
Well, a lot of artists are using science, for example, um or expanding what they know and then turning that into their art. They're informing that rather than just looking at a thing and then kind of duplicating that or telling a story that's already familiar to them. So this doesn't surprise me at all that you're expanding the kind of work that you're making because you're a human and you're learning and growing, and why wouldn't you? Put the things that you're learning and growing into a movie, but they're
Right.
also a good excuse to do that exploration too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's fun putting like what I want is this is like the Marvel universe of Black Pioneers because Green Flake had it was its film, but a lot of those characters are also in this next film. So, and
Oh,
this won't be the last, this Elijah Abel project. So I continue to tell these stories by involving all of these same characters, same actors, so we can really feel connected to their history.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is gonna sound too weird, but Molly, I love your vibe. Like you radiate something extraordinary. I can't quite put my finger what it is exactly, but it doesn't surprise me that you're also a noted public speaker. So how did that aspect of yourself begin, and what are the kinds of messages that you want to share with audiences?
Okay, what's interesting about that is it doesn't seem like it, but I'm an introvert. Like, I am an introvert, like, people I'm like, "Okay, here we go, here we" l if you leave me alone in a room for a long, long time, I am like, that's heaven on earth. I'm an introvert, but I guess the way I express, it doesn't seem like it, And so when this film, started coming out and at the Green Flake one, the first one I was doing, and I started talking about it, I realized that, mm, there was a voice missing in this space and that I had a role to play as just speaking about it. And now, as a public speaker, I do speak on many different topics because I have spent my career developing artists to go and be their best self, right? And so I always thought that I would be in the background saying, now go get them, and I'm back behind the stage. But it wasn't until I got responses that I did when I would go and speak on the experiences that I've had with artist development, with filmmaking, that I realized that there is a voice that's needed, especially within my faith. As an African American male who is so devout in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints, it's unique. And I don't want people to not have that.
Yeah. Well, I'm all for it not being unique, if anyone is asking
Yeah,
my opinion
yeah, yeah,
on things. But, you've given, as I mentioned, some really great interviews in the past. And I was listening to one in preparation for this, and you were talking about, being in the bishopric, and that sometimes young people would come up to you and kind of pull you aside and
yeah.
ask you questions. And I suspect that they're wanting from you, real answers to difficult issues. Or maybe just the chance to voice what it is that they're living with. So I would love to ask you, like, what has your experience been as sort of this person that people can turn to? And if you don't mind, what are some of the questions that they're asking you?
Yeah. So bishopric for 7 years, and right from the beginning, it was questions, those it's the thoughts that we all have. It's not these questions that are out of nowhere. It's the same questions that a lot of us have, you know, like, so were Black people always kept out of the temple? Or when did it start? Is our church racist? Do why do you stay if this is the history? Like, these are the questions that they would come with,
Yeah, real questions.
real questions. And what has the church said about it? Do they still feel that way? Um, and just recently, just a month ago, was Declaration 2. those of you who are active members in the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, that was when we would learn about the priesthood being given to all men, or the priesthood ban being lifted from those of African descent. And I was asked to teach a number of students in my stake. So some stakes got together and said, will you teach this seminary class to the youth? And I was able to teach that, which is wonderful. But before I taught, I asked for them to write down their questions, the
Okay.
ones that gnaw at them, the ones that they don't know how to ask or that they keep asking, that they can't let go of. Now is the time. And so they wrote down their questions, and the majority of the questions were about what, who, who took the priesthood from Black people? Why wouldn't God stop all of this? Right? These type of questions that um, they need discussion for. May not have full, complete answers to, but at least a platform, a place to talk about it. And so we were able to really talk through that, which was incredible. And I find that this was not unique to my ward, these questions. This is something that whenever I go speak, people always pull me aside and have these type of questions.
Yeah, all right, that's cool. I'm jealous of these young people who have that kind of access. I bet they walked away feeling like somebody was listening to me, and maybe I don't have it all figured out this very minute, but eventually there will be some answers that will bring me some peace. Um, so it's very cool. I mean, you're amazing. Congratulations on that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I will say that, like, my message after I answer whatever their question is that it's okay to have the questions and the frustrations. Take those to the Lord and take them to people that you feel like have some information. But at the end of the day, know that there's going to be more hard
Yeah,
things, more questions, more tough history, things you didn't know, and just be prepared for that and know that's a part of our journey as Latter-day Saints.
yeah, beautiful. When I knew I was going to be talking with you today, I had asked a couple of friends who were in their 20s, they're recent college grads, if they had any questions for you to ask. So if you're up for it, I have a couple of questions for them. You ready?
Let's do this.
Okay, so Nick asks, in regards to race and inequality, how do you apply grace to the failing church leaders of old and to contemporary saints or peers who don't care about those issues as deeply as you do? That's a pretty good question. I mean, I'm sure you've wrestled with church history like many people do. How would you respond to this question of grace for others?
Yeah, you know what's interesting? I don't even see it as grace. I just see them as a human living their human experience, doing the best that they can do. Like that was me. That's me in my imperfections. That's Peter, and I go straight to thinking of Jesus Christ and his apostles that walked with him, got to know him so personally. And for Peter to say what he said as Jesus Christ, our Savior, is dying on the cross, he doesn't know him, denying that he has any connection to him. How could he do that? So I could sit here and say, how could this apostle do that? How could I be Christian after this apostle did what he did to Christ? That was just Peter doing what he could. And of course, we hope that he wouldn't and that he would be willing to say, I am an apostle and he is the Savior. But he had his journey. And I don't think that we sit here angry at Peter or what he did. How
Yeah.
could he? But I think it's harder for us to see the human in our leaders of just 100 years ago or even today. It's so much easier to say, how could they? And the unfortunate part and the fortunate part is they're just men, awesome men, incredible men
Yeah.
that were called of God to serve in a certain capacity. And they will not do it perfectly. It will not be flawless. It never has been.
Yeah.
And what we do know how to do as Latter-day Saints is dig through tough history. This is what we do. Like every week, we go through the Bible and read these horrific stories. Like, isn't it in primary age? We know how to do this. Like, we just got to plug and play. We know how to learn hard history. Joseph of Egypt, yes, he was enslaved. His brothers threw him in that hole, but we don't sanitize it. and say, well, maybe it wasn't his brothers, or maybe he wasn't in jail. It wasn't a jail. He was like, we tell it all. And then we draw, where's the faith building story there? What can I pull from this? So now, as we look at, sorry, this is the long, I'm almost done, Glenn.
No,
As we,
please.
as we look at difficult history and we wonder, how could this happen? Think of, where's the faith? Where is the faith in this? Who is living? Who is living in a way that I can draw strength from when I have my difficult things? Because they're there in those stories. And that's where we need to draw strength from. Instead of condemning the people that did the worst things, they were the worst things. But now where's the faith journey in it? And I hope in these films that people will be able to see those.
Okay. Feel free to talk and talk and talk. I think you're
Okay.
kind
I
of learning so
I just felt
much
like I
from
could
your
just sit here on the do a sermon, but I'm like, let me just.
preach, dude. Okay. Here's
Okay.
a question from Brianne. What has been the reception of your work from people inside and outside the church?
Brienne, this was my fear. Like,
Sure.
I love human beings. I love to bring people together and find a way to see our similarities, to celebrate our differences. But with this film, I was like, this is going to do the opposite of what I love to do. This is going to make people outside the church really mad and feel like, oh my, I knew it. I knew it. They are exactly who I thought they were. People in the church are going to be like, why is he doing this to us? How is he going to try to tell these stories and make us look so? But the Lord just kept his boot in my back, or his sandal, or cloth, or barefoot. Whatever he's wearing was in my back, and saying, do it. Tell the story. Tell the story. And so I did it with as much transparency and love and honesty as I could. And I thought it was going to be received poorly on both sides. But when I tell you, Brianne, the responses that I got on both sides, people in the faith and out of the faith, I have yet to have negative feedback. Like, nobody's even said something online to me that was like, oh, yeah, you, blah, blah. Nothing. Zero. How in the world? And so it has been received so well. My biggest fear was the church administration, the church entity as we know it. The church is going to come down and say, Mauli, what are you doing? And the church was like, love what you're doing. One of the leaders even said, one of the 12 apostles now said, it feels like love. And I'm like, wow, telling this difficult history can feel like love. And that meant everything to me. And I'm fighting back tears because I just, the Briannes in the world who don't get to have these experiences of knowing that our leaders are like, yes, let's find more. Let's tell these stories in a way that's honest and unifying. That is our leaders. That's our church, but we have a role to play in it. I have to do my part. I
Yeah.
think I'm the
Did,
one that needs to tell these stories.
did this did this general authority reach out to you personally, or did you just hear it a roundabout way?
I ran into him randomly. I ran into him randomly. I'll just say, so it was Bishop Casse, presiding Bishop Casse while he was presiding bishop. He's an apostle now, but it was Bishop Casse who said, and we love what you're doing. These were his words. We love what you're doing. And he says, it feels like love. I have to tell you, it feels like love. And I just wanted to bury my chest, my face in his chest and just, because that meant the world to me. So and it can. Hard things can feel like love if we take the Lord with us and we're looking for, where is the faith? Where in this journey? Because there's going to be hard things and hurtful things, but there's a thread that we can pull on that's full of faith and endurance.
You know, Molly, when I hear that story, it makes me think, you can file that lovely comment away and coast on that for a long time when
Oh
you
my
have
God.
hard things to face.
Yes.
Yeah. She had another question, Brienne did. She wants to know about the Green Flake Memorial. You mentioned somewhere online, I think, that it was your favorite place in the world. I don't know what she's talking about. So could you
Yeah.
tell us about the memorial and how it came to be and like what it means to you.
Yes, it's the monument at This Is the Place Heritage Park, and it's a beautiful monument. I'm gonna send you some pictures, Glenn, of when I was there, like my pictures. Um, it it's a memorial that honors Green Flake, who drove the first wagon, his 2 brothers-in-law, who also came enslaved in that first, advanced company, Vanguard Company, Oscar and Hark, his 2 brothers-in-law, and then Jane Manning James is also in this monument. She was free, her whole life free, but she was also a part of recognizing these pioneers that came across the trek in 1847, and it is majestic. It is so beautiful and so peaceful. And how that came about, it was not the plan. I made the film, Brienne, and I was supposed to be rich. I just knew it. I was like, I'm gonna be rich because it won the film won every won best film in every film festival that it was in. And I was like, and I was just trying to make the film and I threw it into festivals and I seriously was like, that's why you want me to. I knew you were looking out for me, Lord. This is what it's about. Let the money grow. And then I was gonna look up places to take a picture by the monuments. Like because I live in California, so I'm like, Utah loves monuments. I see them every time I'm there. Black monument, something, something. No, nothing there. Oh, memorial of the enslaved pioneers. Oh, no matter how I wrote it, nothing came up. And then it just hit me like a wave. The same wave of inspiration that I felt when I was prompted to make the film. It was the monument. Make the monument. Like this was not about me making money. I'm gonna make that money. Please believe me. It's going to
You're not
happen.
against the
I'm
idea of
not
it.
against it, and it's coming. But for that project, for sure, it was about telling the story and there being some visual representation where people can see our history as we talk about it. When they come and see, they can literally say, oh, here's their stories. They were here. And so at that monument and memorial at This Is the Place Park, it's right where they came through Immigration Canyon, where Green Flake drove that first wagon, and now they are recognized. And it was an incredible dedication, and thousands of people showed up to be there to celebrate it. You have to go and see it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That sounds incredible. And congratulations for being even, a part of that. And it's just,
Yeah.
it's sort of funny. Artists often are talking about legacy and they're creating work that's going to last. Their hope is to last. And so this idea that art is a monument too is just another way of saying legacy. But then to have artwork that becomes an actual monument, it is sort of this self sustaining thing, which is beautiful to me.
Absolutely.
Your goal for the new project is to have these films and documentaries appear in church spaces in some way. What are
Yes.
you imagining the benefit of that to be? So Green Flake and was a commercial project. Are you thinking the same way for this next project, or is it has a different kind of business model to it?
Well, eventually I'd want it to be the same way where it can be viewed by anyone in the world because for me, the Green Flake film was Black history, uh, Black American history that had to do with the Church of Jesus
Yeah.
Christ of Latter-day Saints. Um, because Green Flake drove the first wagon in the largest pioneer migration in American history. That's Black American history. It's American history that had to do with our church. This film, Elijah Abel, it has to do with our church, the priesthood, the gospel, and how it was navigated through the lens of the Black experience. So it's a little different, and it doesn't quite feel right for it to just go out to the public, and then I'm gonna have some youth in some ward that hear of this show on Netflix or Hulu or Prime, and it feels like someone's telling our history, and they have to learn it from what feels like the outside in. And that's what I wanna avoid. I want it to be from the inside out. I want it to be initially through our church spaces. What I'm saying is not an easy thing. It's like it doesn't happen. So I but I'm comfortable doing what doesn't happen. But I just want you to know that it's not as easy as I want this to be in mission prep and seminary and institute. Um, I don't know how that's gonna happen, but I do know that that has been in my mind throughout the creation of this, that it needs to be in our spaces where we learn, and then eventually can go out to the world, but we have to learn our history, and I don't know how that's gonna happen. There's gonna be miracles, you
Yeah.
know, our Father
Yeah.
in heaven and Jesus Christ are like they do those on the regular, so I can't wait to see how they make it happen.
On the hour. Well, this is my history too. And so I care about it, you know.
Yes.
Okay, maybe this is a tangent, but I love the children's book you wrote with Chantel. Is that your daughter?
My wife, Chantel.
Your wife. Okay.
Yes.
Titled You're Beautiful. It includes this refrain, Your beautiful brown skin. And it says, When you were just a baby, I'd hold you all night long. I'd look into your eyes and sing this special song. I was wondering, is that book autobiographical? Like, tell me a little bit more about the book.
Yes. That book came from well, okay, so I realized so my daughter was 4 at the time, my son is 7, and there was an incident that happened at the school that didn't have to do with my children, but surrounding race, right? And, it's something that, you know, minority children may likely face throughout their life at some point. Someone's going to say something or do something that is insensitive, and they have to navigate that. And
Right?
I realized that my 2 brown children had never had their parents talk to them about how to handle that and what happens and how do you feel. And so I didn't want it to be a heavy discussion for these littles, for these
Yeah.
babies, right? But I did want them to know if it happens, that that's not gonna blindside them, you know? And so I sat them down with me, and me being in music, I freestyled, which is like you think of freestyle rap, right? As a songwriter, I freestyle write music, songs. So I will just make it up on the spot and sing a thing. And so I did that with my children. And I sat them down with me and I sang to them and asked them, has anyone called you a name? Is what I would say. And they would say no. And I said, because you are dark. And they say, no. Has anyone made you feel sad? No. And so I continued to sing to them and ask them questions. And then it led me to sing, "You're beautiful, brown skin child." And that was the chorus that I would just keep coming to, and then ask them questions and what makes them beautiful and how their skin is God's skin because we look like him in his image. And it was just a beautiful moment. Um, um, and then someone saw that video because I put it online. It was just an impromptu video. They saw the video and said, "Can we make this a book?" And and I was like, "Yeah." But, uh, there were certain things that just didn't quite make sense, and my wife, she is a therapist, a licensed clinician, as well as a social worker, and so she was able to make sure that we have the right messaging and everything,
Yeah.
and so we together created a book from that moment.
Your kids are a little bit older now. Do they remember that experience?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can
Absolutely.
imagine.
They still sing it, and they'll touch their skin and say how beautiful they are. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Has being a dad impacted your urgency to address issues regarding race and inequality?
Um, is it me being a father? You know, I don't know that it's me being a dad, that was my urgency. It was more about, the questions that my kids and other children would ask me because I seem to be approachable by little people, and so they'll come and say things and ask things, and I'm like, "Oh gosh, there needs to be somewhere something," and so my children are part of that, not necessarily because I'm their father, but because there are children who have questions. One question that stood out to me was my son when he was looking at the art on one of the walls in the chapel, and he said that Pawpaw, his grandpa, wasn't gonna be in heaven. He can't be an angel. And I said, "Of course he can." "No, he can't." And he points to the picture. "See?" And it was all white angels. And if he looked closely, he would say, and no brunettes, and no whatever, because it was just blonde angels, right? And I was trying to explain to him that that wasn't the case, that that was just art that someone drew. And so I realized that instead of waiting for something to change, I just wanted to be a part of it.
You know, Molly, I have to tell you, I've heard that story
Mm.
before. I've retold it so many times, I should practically get a royalty. That one
Yeah.
story is so impactful for people who hear it. They're like, "Well, of course," you know? And if they were part of that group of previously documented angels, they would that was
Wow.
their moment of illumination to hear a young kid say that.
Yeah.
So hooray for him, and hooray
Yeah.
for you being in the right place at the right time, and also to share it and to make that moment feel, like it was a u universally valid moment because it is. So
I
I mean,
really appreciate
that's
that.
amazing. Yeah. Okay, so everybody listening to this interview will know that this is a crazy time in the world regarding people simply unwilling to listen to each other or uninterested in understanding each other. How are you dealing personally with attempts to turn back the clock on issues like of race in society and to roll back diversity initiatives? Is
Okay,
this something that's keeping you up at night? Like, how are you managing?
I really appreciate that. I do love having discussions about it, because I just love talking about it, what's happening in the world, and so what are you thinking, and why, and what if? I love that, right? But at the same time, the weight of it, I'm not feeling the weight of it because I feel honored to be here. Like, you guys, we have the opportunity to be the ones that we looked to the generations ago when we're like, they did it. They overcame it. Those who were walking with Martin Luther King, and you look at all the races and denominations, right? And generations before him, like, we have an opportunity to be who we think we are. Now is the time. And so, of course, there's going to be those who feel differently and things are not going in the direction we want them to go, but we have an opportunity to be a part of the positive change we want that to be. I love it. I love that we have this opportunity. Instead of just talking about them, it's here right now.
Um, I was saying to you before we started our interview that I really was hoping that you would move to New York, even now more than ever. Should I look in my apartment building to see if like there's an empty apartment? I love what you're saying. You know, I have a difficult time with the morning newspaper,
Mm.
and I'm struggling these days to try to figure out how to process what I'm reading. And should I delve into it? Should I follow? Should I know all the players? Should I try to affect that? What is it doing to me and my psyche to do that? I mean, this is maybe a weird question, but do you have a strategy for
It's
digesting the news?
yeah, I think it's a wonderful question. So I'll answer this for white people, or people who have not been a part of a minority group that has had to navigate these discomforts.
Okay.
And you might be the like majority of my white friends have never experienced these feelings, right? Or seen these things, and I'm like, you guys, this is just life. What is wrong with you? You know, like you just navigate it. You know, me as a child, I've had experiences that were similar to things that you see online that makes your heart ache and share and rant. But if you're someone who has experienced it your whole life, you have um I, the weight of it is not so heavy. Doesn't mean that it's not as serious. Doesn't mean that it doesn't need our attention. But if you're new to navigating these spaces, you have to be able to step away. Doesn't mean that you don't care, but you do have to turn off certain things. And that doesn't mean that you're pulling away from things that need your attention, but you and your mental health has to step away. Turn it off. Don't deal with it this way. I'm going to spend this week focusing on the thing that I want to do that can help and see if I can make some progress that you can measure. And that progress might be just a simple email. I'm going to write this email to this politician, whether they read it or not, but I'm going to do this, or I'm going to reach out to this person that I know their family is impacted by something I saw. I just want to take them to lunch, spread some love on them, let them know how, whatever that thing is, you have to pick and choose. Don't do it all. You can't fire hose the thing if you're not used to the water. You can't.
Um, with these interviews, Molly, I often make people cry. You're making me cry
Oh,
because I've had friends who have been so overwhelmed with this stuff that they've shut down, they're medicated, they're not living the kind of life that they thought they were going to. Um, it's really taken over their lives. And so I love what you just said. I feel really honored to have asked the question there. All
yeah.
right.
I'm gonna reiterate something because
Okay.
I have a dear friend who was just came to me and up in arms, just how can it just
Yeah,
the
yeah,
outrage
sure.
over what's happening, and I just have to say, "Okay, okay, it's happening. So what do you wanna do? What do you wanna do? What can we do?" So we know what's happening, and we'll go back and tap in to see if anything's changed in a little bit, but tell me, what do you wanna do?
Okay.
What's something we can do today? Let's do
Really.
that today, you know, and then
How do they respond to that? Do they does that make
it
sense? Is that working with
honestly,
them?
it made sense, but I think what mattered the most is they felt like they had permission to. You
Uh-huh.
have permission to take care of your mental health. You have to. You have to. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you can't be helpful in this long journey because this is a forever work. It's not
Yeah.
just right now,
Okay.
and we need you forever.
Let me ask you, these days, given all of this
Yeah.
stuff and the many things that are, that you have to do in your life. I mean, we're all getting through the day and we all have responsibilities and whatever. I'd love to know what's bringing you joy right now.
Oh, it's interesting because what I'm gonna share doesn't feel like joy, but so for the last 4 months, I've been the primary caretaker of my, wife's grandmother
Mm,
who helped raise her. So,
okay.
um, they think people around me think I don't work, because I'm just on the computer and editing and whatever else. I don't have a 9 to 5, so I was able to be with her full time. And that was of course, it has its challenges, but so rewarding to sit with someone who's been through so much and listen to their stories and help them try to get stronger. And then she recently passed away just a week and a half ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And oh, that's okay. And I feel so much joy for that opportunity that I had to spend with her. And even though she didn't get strong again, we got to spend such beautiful quality time. And I'm like, thank you, Lord, for that opportunity. And so it's often when something bad happens, death, loss, something terrible in the news, I
Yeah.
often can see what was the joy connected to that. Oh, I'm so grateful that I was able to make this relationship happen before this, so I don't know if I'm not intentionally trying to focus on the positive, but I just see it. And and I do think that those who don't just see it, take a second and take stock of the things that are joyful in your life. And because otherwise you'll miss it. You'll just miss it. And you'll think this year was so terrible. And it's like, it was not so bad. Let's hit some milestones. Let's talk about your children. What were the joyful things? Let's talk about your spouse. What did you overcome? Let's talk about you. What are you proud of? And there's so much to be joyful for.
Yeah. And what did you learn?
Oh, well, I learned oh, wait, through my experience with her or through
I mean, generally speaking, like I was just adding to your list, all the
yes,
right,
yes,
this idea of that all of these experiences can bring you knowledge that, you'll use even if it's a negative experience.
100%.
Yeah. Tell us about the Lift Up Voices Foundation.
Yeah, that's my nonprofit. That's where I'm doing these films through, or at least, the Green Flake film and this Elijah Abel project are through my nonprofit, Lift Up Voices. But before it it incorporated film and storytelling. It focused solely on like music workshops and speaking. So we would go to groups that are impoverished or don't have certain resources, and we would empower them with how to talk about their story, how to share their story, how to express it through music, give them different skill sets. And when I began working in film, it continued in that work where if you were on my film set, you would see a little 12-year-old shouting at the sound man, shouting at the camera operator, action, because they're getting mentored. So we have little ones who are getting mentored by all these departments, and they're a part of telling these stories. And the reason why that's important is because I don't want this next generation to feel like they don't have a say in the stories that are told and how the history is unraveled and just wait for it to hit them. They can be a part of telling it. Learn the history, learn how to write a script, learn how to create music. And it's just been an awesome part of my life, my nonprofit.
You know, I've known members of your family over the years. I don't know if we've ever been in the same ward, but definitely the same stake here in New York. A pretty impressive group of people. That's basically code for a bunch of overachiever, talented folks. What was your family like growing up, and how did that put you on a course for your life and career?
Oh, it was brutal in our house. It was cutthroat. It was American Idol before American Idol because we would just compete with everything, like literally competing, like sing competitions. We had categories, song choices, and there's 8 of us, right? Eight children. So I have 7 siblings, and there's 8 of us together, 4 boys,
Where are
4.
you in the hierarchy of everything?
I'm the oldest boy, so I got some clout, but I got 2 older sisters, and that just kind of diminishes everything. Um, but we would just compete always with singing, with acting every day. There weren't toys. I can't remember having toys, like we would just compete with each other and sing and judges and then crying and then forgiving and then competing again. So that was my childhood with our family. And then of course my mother ran a gospel choir. And so we were in the gospel choir. We'd go to the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, and then we go to what she say, now let's go get some Jesus. Then we go to the then we go to a predominantly black church, whether it's a Baptist church or whatever, and sing and shout and praise the way we knew how culturally to express our feelings. And so that was our childhood growing up, was this this blend between our culture as African Americans and then our faith, which was also such a foundation for us. We moved so much, Glenn, like 21 times. I thought it was 19 times. My mother told me it was 21 times we moved before I even got to high school.
That's a
So
lot.
yeah, that's a lot, right? And so, of course, you move that much, and where's the stability? The Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints.
I
That's what
see.
we always had. That
Mil-
consistency.
Military kids are thinking, wow, I thought I moved around a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's amazing. Like, it's been so great talking with you today, Molly. Thank you so much for taking the time. How can listeners learn more about you and your work?
Oh my gosh. First of all, I can't believe we're done. What happened? I thought we were just like introducing this thing. Like we're done? Has it been like an hour?
Yes.
This is crazy. Okay, so people can learn more about me where? Well, maulib.com. So that's like where you can learn a little bit about what I've done in music. Um Find me on Instagram. I don't really go on very much. But when I'm there, you'll learn about what I'm doing. Mauli B1, maybe Mauli B. I don't even know what I do. But
That's
keep.
something you should probably know.
I know, right? But I think the best way is to just. It sounds like Google me. Yeah, Google me. Okay, if you want to know, But if you Google me, you'll find like some things I'm working on, and I'm gonna give my email. Can I give my email? No, that's too much. Well, okay. If you have,
On your website, you have a
yes,
contact thing.
there
So
we
if
go.
somebody wants to, they can go there.
Yes, if you want more of what we're talking about, or you want it in your steak for something, or you want it for whatever it is, or you have a question just yourself, please reach out to me, maulib.com. You can find me, ask the questions, and we can have more of conversations like these. Glenn, I cannot believe that you're lying. This is crazy.
No, I'm not because I put lunch in the oven and I think, well, that's burnt now. So never mind that.
That's funny.
Any, and I'm kidding around, but I have loved talking to you today, Molly. So any
Thank you.
last thoughts for us?
Last thoughts. I would just say, um, reiterating your question, I appreciate that you asked about what's happening today. Um, and no matter where you are on the spectrum of what's happening today, everything is going to be okay. I promise you, it's going to be okay. So just know where you want to be. What part do you want to play? And play that part and feel good about the part you're playing, no matter what's happening around. Because if we look at just the outcome, then we're measuring by the wrong tool. Because if you look at the outcome of Joseph Smith, his family being hunted down, him
Yeah,
dying the way he died, how do we measure what he had done? Jesus Christ, the apostles that were all crucified behind him. How do we measure their success? By what happened to them in the end? And you have to measure it by the work you're doing. So find the thing that brings you joy and spend your time in that and know that that is good enough.
okay. Amen. Thank
Amen.
you. Thank you for listening to the Center Studio podcast. You can access earlier interviews on our website and learn more about the activities of the center by going to www.centerforlatterdaysaintarts.org. Goodbye.